So we meet again. Video 2. I'm actually surprised that I went ahead and posted video 1. But I'm glad that I did. Again, for the foreseeable future, don't expect any fancy editing or camera work or anything like that. I wanted to be as real and honest and off the cuff as possible, and trying to keep myself from the inner need to be perfect, because I think that's a big thing that most of us that are neurodivergent, have something like autism or ADHD or a combination thereof. I think that's something that we really struggle with. I think that's something that comes out of a long time of masking. And I know that that is definitely true for myself. And even though I understand it and I have that awareness about myself, it doesn't mean that it makes it any more comfortable to do things like this. Case in point, I didn't even put really any makeup on today. And normally that wouldn't have been even remotely in my mind to pick up a camera and film myself and post it for anybody to see. Like, I wouldn't even leave my house for the longest time. It didn't matter if I was like on a camping trip or like in a situation where, staying at a friend's house or something where maybe you didn't have all of your creature comforts around you. I would still go through like the whole process of like putting a full face of makeup on, and I would get up before everybody else so that like nobody saw me not put together. I did that when I was first married. It was like watching Mrs. Maisel and seeing her go through the whole routine that she would go through before her husband would wake up in the morning. And I laughed because inside I'm like, oh my God, that was you. You used to do things like that. And I feel silly. We're all human. And you can't be on all the time. And I am learning that more and more every day. You cannot be on all the time. But the world sure wants you to be. The world sure expects you to be. And I thought that was law, canon, for a really long time. I thought that I needed to be perfect and at my peak every time I left the house. I needed to look as perfect as possible. I needed to dress as perfect as possible. I needed to act and hold myself in a way that was acceptable and expected. And I never realized that I was masking. I never realized there was a name for this thing that I was doing, even though inside, internally, I just didn't care. I wanted to just sit in a corner and not be bothered by anybody and watch a movie or read a book or listen to music or do a craft and just most of the time really wanted to be left alone. Of course, as I'm also learning that when you're stuck in that in-between of autism and ADHD, there's also a different side to that, which is feeling left out and like you want to be a part of the goings-on and wanting people to like you and wanting people to be around you, and then going out to be around those people and realizing that you just don't have the energy for it. It is such a puzzle, and it is so interesting to me that all of these things are bubbling up to the surface. All of these memories from childhood of just trying so hard and never having the clarity of really knowing if there was a payoff for all of these things that I was doing to try to, be great in school and learn everything that I could. And I wanted to be smart, and I wanted to be seen, and I wanted to be pretty, and I wanted to be good at things, and I wanted to be liked, and I wanted to be appreciated, and I wanted to be revered in a lot of ways. I wanted people to see me and see what I would do and praise me for that. And it was really not something that I ever got a whole lot of. Because on the other hand, I also didn't want to be the center of attention. I didn't want people to look at me. And I think that's because I always felt like I was an imposter. I always felt like people were going to see how hard I had to work to be me, and that they would laugh. That they'd see it and that they'd laugh, that they'd make fun of me, that they'd find a way to belittle me, that they would find out that I'm not really great with numbers, that although I understand a lot of things about math, certain things just don't compute in my head, and that numbers themselves are difficult for me, that I would see things backwards or rearranged, or that I didn't understand a lot of things that people were trying to teach me. But I always had the vocabulary of somebody, 4 or 5 years older than me. I was in gate classes. Gen Xer, so, if there's any other fellow Gen Xers there that remember gate classes. I could read and comprehend far above my regular age group. I was really good at a lot of things, but I sucked at math. And I was anxious about sucking at math. I was nervous that somebody would find out that I sucked at math and that I wouldn't get to go to the fun classes anymore and learn the fun things, because a lot of the gate classes were getting to do things that were really kind of out of the box and intriguing. And I know at my school we got to work with computers, which were brand new, and things like that. I would get to read things above my grade level and discuss them, and that was cool. And then got into junior high and high school and was put into AP classes, of course, never for math. But I worked so hard to be the very best. And it was really difficult because I know that my parents didn't get it, right? They grew up not having a lot of importance put on school. Like, of course, they wanted me to go to school and get good grades, and, those things were important, but they didn't put the level of importance on it that I think most people put on it. It was more about working hard, being responsible. My dad worked multiple jobs, and my mom also worked. And so for a really long time, when I was very young, my grandmother would watch over me while my parents were at work. And I adored her. But she didn't treat me like a kid necessarily. I mean, she did in that grandmother way that I think all grandmas treat their grandkids. She was, of course, loving and always wanted to be there, but she also was great at involving me in things. And she came from a huge family, so I have a feeling that that's one of the reasons why I think she was more kind of in the middle of a big family. So I'm sure she was used to having younger kids, at her feet and kind of teaching them the ropes, as it were. But I feel like my grandma did her best to kind of make me feel settled, make me feel at home, even though my parents weren't around, make me feel like I was loved and needed, and like I could do things on my own. And as I kind of continue to go through looking back at my life and just trying to put the pieces together, once she wasn't in the picture full time anymore, which was around 7 or 8 years old for me, like I had a lot of changes in my life. We moved. I left my friend group. My grandparents moved across the country, and so it went from seeing my grandmother every day, seeing my grandfather almost every day, to having them move across the country and like only seeing them on summer break for a couple weeks, or seeing them at holidays when they would come to visit. And that was really hard. I think when you're that young and you have something like autism or ADHD or some other type of neurodivergence, I think having those stable people in your life is so important. I think they lay a lot of the foundation that's necessary for you to feel safe and exploring the world. And I know that it definitely made a difference when they were gone, because my parents were so busy with so many other things, to no fault of their own. I mean, that was life at that time. And I know it still is for a lot of people. That it was really hard not to have my person around anymore. And I know that had a big impact on me. And that's something that I've been unraveling for a long time. But knowing what I know now, having the diagnosis that I have, it even has more of a weight or presence in my kind of reflecting on my life and what has been and how I got here. I think the whole process and really discovering not only what masking is, but the toll that it takes on somebody. It's huge. And I don't know that those of us who have had to do it to the extent that we have could ever really explain what that's like and what it feels like. Because now I can look at it and I can say, I never felt normal. I never felt like I fit in. I always felt on the outside. I'm an incredibly empathic person. I'm incredibly sensitive to all the things around me, and I was always like that. And so I was very shy. I was very weary of people that I didn't know, or who came across like they were not being genuine or hiding themselves. Or, you could always, I could pick up on all the things that other people couldn't see. I was always reading the kind of tone of what was going on, and I was always watching to, read the room. I think it's something that you do for yourself as a safety mechanism, as a coping mechanism, as a way to try to gauge what mask to wear, or how you need to respond. I think we're taking in so much information. We're looking at facial expressions and body language, and we're hearing tone of voice, and we're creating all of these perfect masks in our minds of what a certain situation calls for and what it should look like, what your response should be. Wanting to know what are the rules of the situation. Kind of learning that at an early age in a classroom and at home, and then, later applying that to a job and to just being out in society and trying to wrap your head around what exactly that means. It means that those of us who have had to do that have never truly had the opportunity to be ourselves or to even know what that is. Because the need and the drive and the urgency for which we created and maintained and tweaked and revised masks was ongoing our whole lives. And when you come to the realization that that is something that you've done, and you start to slowly unravel that and catch yourself masking and then slowly trying to put down those walls, it's really difficult to just sit in that space of sometimes complete awkwardness, sometimes confusion, sometimes anger and frustration. Yeah. And it's hard, and I don't think I could ever fully explain to someone who doesn't have to do that what that's like. It leads to you carrying a lot more weight than you probably should ever. And for setting impossible goals and standards for yourself that just are not human. Like, nobody should have to be held to that level. And then realizing not only that, but all of your time spent doing this has done considerable damage to your body. Your body has learned to live under a constant state of fight or flight, a constant state of stress and alertness. A lot of us don't sleep well, and a lot of us have a lot of physical issues that I don't think anybody could understand, because most of the time you wouldn't be able to tell just from looking at us. And then people get frustrated with us because we're not acting the way that you expect, or reacting the way that you would expect, or keeping up the way you would expect, or communicate the way you expect us to. It's a never-ending loop that we seem to get caught in. And I think for a lot of it, we always feel like we did something wrong. like it's our fault. And it's not. It's not our fault. I read something recently that really stuck with me, and I'll kind of leave it here. This basically said, pay attention to the neurodivergent people in your life, because they are like the canaries in the coal mine. They are seeing and sensing the things that you cannot. All of the subtle signs. They can see past and under and through and around all the things that you can't. And if they are reacting in a way that you don't understand, if they are shutting down, if they are getting quiet, if they are sensing or feeling something that is uncomfortable to them, you should probably stop and pay closer attention. Because they are pointing to something that is not natural, that is not humane, that is not good for the environment, that is not good for the soul or the spirit. So, no, it's not our fault, and we shouldn't have to play the same game that everybody else is. In fact, we're kind of the superheroes. People just haven't woken up and realized it yet, but I feel like we're getting there. So, if you're going through the same thing, or if you are close to somebody who is going through the same thing, try to have more patience. You know, if you're somebody else who is neurodivergent, have that patience with yourself. Give yourself the time and the space to be and feel however you need to be and feel, and show up exactly as you are. And if you're on the outside looking in, give those people in your world the space that they need, and ask them about it. Ask them about it in a gentle, loving, caring way, and then actually listen to what they're saying. Because even if it doesn't feel like a lot, it is. And I guess that's all that I got for today. Will I show up tomorrow again? Maybe. Will it be a couple of days? Maybe. I don't know. But I will see you when I see you. And I'm sure I will have much more to talk about. And if you have anything that you want to talk about, or if any of this resonated with you, I hope you will watch and you'll say something in the comments. Take care. Be well. Bye-bye.